first step in applying to Oxbridge is of course choosing a course. I'd like to be able to say don't rush, but the fact of the matter is, the earlier you figure out what you want to study, the more time you have to tailor your application to your respective course, so it's best to work out early on. What I will say though is that you need to remain open-minded. Many people, like me, find that the course meant for them was not the one they had initially chosen, so be open to change.
Most essentially, I would choose what you are passionate about, as this is what you'll be studying for at least 3 years and potentially doing for the rest of your life. So, you want it to be something you enjoy. This is useful for the interviews as the people you will be speaking to are experts in their profession, and you will be able to tell if you truly do enjoy the subject.
Having a clear idea of what your degree will actually teach you and what skills are required will help with your application. Most of this information can be found on the course website. For me, I had previously considered architecture and engineering. However, after some research, I realised I wasn't too keen on either. In the end, I chose design because it seemed to suit my skills and interests better, and hopefully it's something that I will enjoy studying.
Coming into lower sixth, I had already decided that I wanted to study engineering, and I knew that I was going to apply to Oxbridge. The engineering courses at both universities are reasonably similar, but from asking students and alumni of both courses at the speed networking event, I found that Cambridge had more of a practical focus, which drew me to that course. It was also helpful that Cambridge's entrance exam was the same as entrance exams for Imperial, so I would only have to prepare for one paper if I applied for Cambridge.
This summer is extremely valuable for building your personal statement. Even if you feel you currently have very little to write about, it is more than enough time to go into real depth on 2 or 3 of your activities, alongside your admission test preparation. There are all kinds of things you can include, but I find it particularly helpful to focus on independent research, choosing a few areas within your field that genuinely interest you and exploring them in depth.
Your Oxbridge ELTS mentor essentially serves as your own personal proofreader. You've been fortunate enough to be provided with someone who you can send endless personal statement drafts and then receive endless feedback on them. Do not take this for granted. Mine helped me with not only my personal statement, but also gave me a mock interview, occasionally emailed me with interview-type problems, and proofread my additional personal statement, which you will eventually need to write should you apply to Cambridge. In short, do not hesitate to hassle your OE as much as you need.
During lower sixth, I did a lot of wider reading around engineering, and this was good to mention in my personal statement. However, it was also important that each book leads on from the previous one, and you do other things that are relevant to your research, such as experiments or derivations. You want to show a journey of genuine interest and understanding, rather than a bibliography of impressive-sounding books which you didn't really get.
Often, the first question in the interview is drawn directly from your personal statement. It's meant to be an accessible starting point, so it's not a good sign if you can't answer it well. You must be prepared to discuss everything you mention, no matter how small. In my case, both interviewers picked up on minor points about my work experience and asked detailed technical questions about them. Expect this and prepare for it carefully.
Depending on where you apply, you may be required to sit an admissions test. For me, that was TMUA and soon to be STEP. Unsurprisingly, the best advice I can offer you is to prepare and prepare. You really want to make sure that you're as confident as can be on the day and will not be thrown off your game by any nerves or test centre related inconveniences. And the best way to do this is to familiarise yourself as much as possible with the test and style of questions. This will also serve to help you when it comes to preparing for interviews. There are tons of resources online to help you prepare, as well as support from the relevant departments within school. The admissions test can be the making or breaking of your application, as many competitive universities tend to place a lot of weight on it, so it's crucial to ensure you perform your best.
My admissions test was focused on essays, and so deciding how I would structure these before my exam was a large part of my preparation. And I also had to learn techniques in analysing historical art pieces for the exam. These are all new skills for me, and you may have to learn new things as well. So, do not be afraid to ask people for help if you have to learn how to answer different types of questions to what you are used to. Speaking to people who are more familiar with that subject area, teachers or pupils, will be extremely helpful.
In terms of my preparation, it was important to understand that the specification for the PAT had differences to my A-level course, and my subject mentor was very proactive on this and helped me to understand the new topics which weren't in the spec. I started with the old papers and worked towards the new ones. I also kept a score on how I did for each paper so that I could compare when I did them again. I decided to collate different types of questions to understand the places where I was losing more marks and what I should focus on. I completed every paper and then marked it afterwards. And I found this important to do this without looking at the mark scheme before the questions. Even if you don't know how to get a final solution, you need to understand which aspects of the question you did and didn't understand initially, and so checking the answers won't help. Over the course of the preparation, I ended up completing every paper at least twice.
Now, I'd say if you don't have an admissions test, you should find something that you could sort of use as an admissions test, like an Olympiad, because all you have to show that you're good at your subject is your A-levels and your personal statement. And everyone applying will have good grades, and a personal statement can show your interest in the subject, but not necessarily if you're good at it. And to be honest, I'd recommend trying to do well in all the Olympiads or challenges for the subjects you study, because it's just more things that can show that you're a good applicant.
I had 3 interviews at Oxford spread out over the course of a week, 2 for Corpus Christi and 1 for St Peter's. I actually didn't start preparing for my interview till after the PAT. However, I would recommend starting as soon as the tests finish, even though it's difficult to prepare for something, not knowing if you'll be invited for it. It is important to prepare nonetheless, because in the end, I had less than a week's notice for my interview date, and that wouldn't have been long enough to prepare. A good way to practice for the interview process is to speak your thoughts aloud, and I would encourage practicing this throughout your preparation if you aren't already confident at it.
Although the interview will mainly be technical questions, there will be a few questions about your personal statement, and you should be prepared to discuss any part of it. My interviewers asked me about the things I had least expected to be asked about, but since I knew my personal statement inside and out, I was able to answer them.
Now, if you don't have an admissions test and you think you've made your personal statement as good as it can be, I'd recommend starting your interview preparation early, just to get comfortable with saying your ideas out loud. This is really important because to an interviewer, staying silent because you have no ideas looks the same as staying silent because you have so many things you could say that you can't decide which one is best.
Co-curricular programmes, like the symposium and specific Oxbridge history sessions, were also great for giving me practice at discussing a wide range of topics and being able to express my views on a discussion. So, it would be good to go to the symposium and your respective subject sessions to hone your abilities and give yourself the best chance possible.
And finally, I'd say once you get your offer, don't relax, because you're not in yet. And it'd be even more heartbreaking if you don't get in this time, because now you've done the hard bit. So just make sure you put in the effort to get those grades.
The whole process of applying to Oxbridge is long, but it doesn't have to be stressful. It's important to trust in your own academic abilities and think of it as an opportunity to really deepen your understanding of your subjects. To those thinking of applying, I wish you all the best.